What's up, Cerebral football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. And I just wanted to do a real quick live stream tonight because I've had some questions coming in involving this pick. Kind of really the Jalyx Hunt pick and kind of like why the Eagles made this selection, why we may have passed on other guys that were on the board. I have a couple of things I can kind of bring to the forefront, guys, to bring a little context. But truth be told, I mean, come on, guys. Nobody knows that except for those that were in the actual front office in the front room. But some of y'all know, in particular, when it comes to Payton Wilson, I do have some intel on this young man. So let's start the conversation off right there with Payton Wilson, why the Eagles may have passed on him, right? No one knows exactly, but I do have a little background information I can share about Payton Wilson. So what I'm sharing with you right now is my Twitter feed, guys. If you don't follow me on Twitter, it's Gate City Sports Talk at Hyder Steve. All right. I'm not that creative. A lot of you guys have asked me to speak about why the Philadelphia Eagles selected Jalyx Hunt over Payton Wilson. So this is the reasons I listed for everybody on Twitter. Number one, he has a very complex injury history, guys. Most of this stuff happened very early on at his time at NC State. However, with that said, it did happen. It was significant. And he got in trouble, which is the last point I'm going to make, guys, while he was kind of rehabbing from these injuries, right? Number 2 point I put up here, guys, is come on. It's Howie. You had an edge. You had a linebacker. They were both pretty high on this board. Where do you think he's going, guys? He's going to go with the edge. Come on. Number 3, this is something I think a lot of people have started to become aware of, but weren't aware of very early on in the process. I got a lot of these around like January, February. A lot of people kept asking me about like, oh, what do you think about Payton Wilson? I was like, look, the guy's athletic, man. I mean, this is one of the more athletic guys I've watched play at NC State. I mean, this dude is a phenomenal athlete. And I do think that he can find success in the right system at the NFL level. This is by no means me saying I don't think this young man's going to be successful. I think he found a home that will take care of him in Pittsburgh. I do think it is a very good fit for him. But 30.5-inch arm reach is still 30.5-inch arm reach at the linebacker spot. No matter how instinctive he is, no matter how fast he is, no matter how powerful he is, you're still 30.5 inches. So when someone climbs up to the second level who's got 33 inches or more and possibly almost 100 pounds on you, that's going to be a little bit of an issue, guys. I mean, you're going to have to really show the violence in your hands to basically stack and then shed those linemen, right? Your ability to disrupt in that sense. Number 4, he's older. He's 24, guys. I mean, this is a 24-year-old prospect we're talking about, right? You got an issue with the early injury history to where there's some concern about whether or not there's an actual ACL joint in one of his knees, if that has been eroded and has now been reconstructed through, modern medicine, right? We know that other NFL guys have stuck around the league and have played for a pretty good duration of time with this type of injury, but we are talking about, stacked linebacker. We're talking about stacked linebacker, not on ball. We're not talking about like an overhang on ball. We're talking about off ball stacked, where the rate of injury is quite high at playing that position, guys. I mean, at some point, at some time, everybody, no matter how good they are, they tend to get injured if they're a stacked linebacker, to be quite honest. So at 24, you got to look at the contract situation, guys. By the time he comes up for another contract, we're talking 27, 28-ish, right? He's coming up on that other contract. He's also got this knee issue where there's no ACL. How long is that going to last? And also, like we said before, guys, these dudes get hurt. These dudes get hurt when they play linebacker. It can happen. It can definitely go sideways. So I do think that was a little bit of a constraint of he's, a little shorter in the arm reach. He's older at 24, right? He's got a complex injury history. There's the valuation of edge versus linebacker. And then the last thing, guys, is he got in trouble in NC State. So, I mean, simply put, if you go click on this article that I listed for you, and I'm going to share this tab instead. This is from the News and Observer, guys. I'm not going to sign into this. But this is the News and Observer. This is one of the bigger, newspaper outlets here in North Carolina. All right. It's a trustworthy news site. I know of the party that this took place of, guys. I was in the area when this stuff happened. I know the party that he was attending when all this stuff happened. But if you read down here, a 19-year-old NC State football player from Orange County faces multiple charges related to consuming alcohol, running into traffic, fleeing police, and attempting to hide under a parked car, according to arrest warrants. All right, so the charges are consuming alcohol by a 19 or 20-year-old, possession of a fraudulent ID, injury to personal property, impeding traffic, and 2 counts of resisting an officer. I don't think this guy's a bad character, okay? I've known this young man. I don't know him personally, but, I know those that are around the program, guys, okay? I know about Payton Wilson. I don't think this is a bad young man. Please don't take this as me saying this is a bad young man. Understand this is the NFL draft, right? They're going to over scrutinize. Guys have been crucified for a lot less than that, to be quite honest. This happened very early on at NC State. This is while he was rehabbing an injury. He got in trouble. Like, when you add all these things together, and everyone keeps asking me, you're an NC State guy. Why did this happen? Right? Let me stop sharing the screen, guys. You know, as an NC State guy, Steve, like, why did they pass on him? Like, what happened here? Well, he's got a complex injury history, guys. Just know the valuation. Like, if you got similar grades on a guy like Payton Wilson and Jalyx Hunt, you got an edge versus a linebacker. I mean, which way you think Howie's going, guys? Come on, right? You know, number 3, the guy's shorter in the arm reach for a stacked linebacker. He's 30.5 inches. Like, dude's strong as crap and athletically gifted. I mean, he's one of the more athletically gifted guys I've watched come through NC State, and that includes Aleem McNeil, who went on to Detroit. He was around that same time frame with these guys. And I'm not, you know, like I said, I think the guy could definitely find success in the NFL. That's not what this is about. But if you're getting stacked up to the second level by a dude that's 100 pounds more than you with 33 inches or greater in the arm reach, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, come on, man. Physics are physics here. Number 4, as I talked about in the actual post, like, this young man is somebody that is a very good young man, but he is older at 24, and he did get, you know, number 5's point. He got in trouble. Like, he's an older prospect with a complex injury history, right? With shorter arm reach as a stacked linebacker. And, like, to be real, you know that they kind of dive deep into these dudes when there's the draft. He had a complex, you know, kind of issue going on at NC State early on. All this stuff happened really early. This guy really cleaned his act up, was a class act at NC State. I don't think he's a character concern in the NFL. I'm just saying, you guys know this, man. You know how they scrutinize dudes in the league. When you see this rap sheet come up before you, where it's like, it's not just one thing, right? It's the complex injury history. It's the fact that he's only has 30.5-inch arms playing stacked linebacker. You know, it is the fact that he's already 24 years old, and he had these legal issues where he's faced several counts here. Now, mind you, this young man played out at a place called Orange County, is where his high school was, in Hillsborough. It's just outside of Chapel Hill, guys, right outside of where UNC is. This is a very affluent community. This, you know, he did not grow up with hardship, to say the least. But I mean, if you want the short answer, guys, that's my short answer for you. Those 5 reasons is why they passed on this young man. Okay. I think it wasn't just one thing. I think it was multiple things kind of combined together that led them there. Now, which one was at the forefront? The injury, you know, combined with the legal stuff. I don't know. I mean, the legal stuff was a long time ago. I definitely think they would have probably had some questions for him if they were really highly interested in this guy. I think there would have been some questions, right? I think when teams were bringing him in, you know, they were asking about that incident. That was several charges he faced there. And I remember this incident like it was yesterday, guys. I mean, I know exactly where this party took place. I know all the outlier information here, guys, when it comes to this thing. I mean, it's unfortunate. And this doesn't end the conversation, guys, about Jalyx Hunt in this pick. I get that some of you guys are really concerned. So I'm going to go into a second tweet that I sent out during day 2 of the draft, okay? This was prior to day 2 of the draft, and I was analyzing what was on the board, and I talked about what it looked like from the top 30 visits, kind of like the guys that you were hearing reported from Philadelphia. I laid out a prospect profile for you guys as an edge rusher. I said, look, this is what seems to be kind of like the telltale signs of what they're looking for in an edge rusher. And I did put this tweet out, so I'll share that with you guys, and then I'll talk to you for a second of like why this stuff matters. Okay, so stick with me. There is some unique information in this stuff, guys. So I'm going to share the screen. All right, so we're going to go right here. We're going to share it. All right, this is a continuation that I had wrote on the edge rushers, right? My 7th point on this was there's big 3 names, Adisa Isaac, Jalyx Hunt, and Marshawn Nealand, the 3 guys that we brought in for top 30 visits. There's a size profile here. All these dudes are 6'3+. Okay, Isaac is just short of 250 pounds, but you can see that there's a profile about 250 plus, and all these dudes have 33 inches in the arm reach or greater. It seems like Vic Fangio was looking for a weak side edge player who was about 6'3 plus, 250 plus, and had about a 33-inch wingspan. 33-inch arm reach and about 79 inches or greater in the wingspan. That was the size profile, okay? That was there. And then I brought up a couple other points here, guys, in this post. Let me see if I can't find it real quick. I talked about one of my sleepers here, guys. I said, I haven't heard this name mentioned with the Eagles, and I have no hidden source or any of that crap. I just like the underlying measurables, the analytics, and the tape. Ole Miss's Cedric Johnson, who's a 6'3", 260-pound guy with 33.5-inch reach, and his testing numbers are quite intriguing. He went later on in the draft. The Eagles, like I said, there was never any reported interest. I talked about Jonah Elliss, who was, you guys should know this name. He's Noah Ellis's brother. His other brother played here too, Christian Elliss. He's got another brother that used to play for the Saints. So, I mean, like he's got a family tradition of playing football. But I talked about him being in the draft. And then you'll see this point right here where I was finishing off my points about Muhammad Kamara, right? And I went into this Jalyx Hunt point. I said, Jalyx Hunt is intriguing. He's 6'4". He's 250 pounds plus. He's got a 34-inch or greater arm reach. And then look at this man's wingspan. He's got like an 82 point something wingspan, guys. I knew the profile they were looking for. I didn't know the player, right? Like, it's easy to sit there and say, like, oh, Gay, how you know the player? I didn't know the player, guys. It's not what this is about. I had no clue who the freaking player would be. But I did know is the size profile. I was able to easily look this stuff up and get a consensus on what they're doing and be able to use my mind to know what they're doing here and figure out the size. There's something I want to share with you about why they may have taken this player, guys, okay? So I'm going to get to what I know some of you guys will naturally ask, right? Like, Gabe, what was the order of some of these dudes being picked? How did this thing shake out, right? So in the first round, you had 3 guys that came off the board. They keep listing Darius Robinson as an edge, but he's a 5 technique in like a 30 front. Could be a heavy edge player in a 40 front, but really a 5 technique in a 30 front. Dallas Turner, Chop Robinson, Latu. I don't know how you say his name. Latu. You guys know what I'm talking about. Latu. Okay. Latu was a consensus guy. Didn't fit everything I said there, but I just think the upside to him as a pass rusher, how skilled he was, I don't think the Eagles would have cared. I mean, you just roll the tape on that situation and you run with the tape, right? But Dallas Turner is interesting. Dallas Turner is the guy that I think you got to do a little bit more research on to realize why they might have had some interest later on in a guy like Jalyx Hunt. Okay. So Dallas Turner, one of the big names in this draft. I told you guys, don't ever trust full 40 times. They don't tell you everything that people think. But this young man put up a 4.46 40. What intrigues me is he had a 1.6 110 split, but I have seen it reported in other places that it was a 1.5 410 split. That doesn't matter. All we need to know is explosive 10 split, right? A 40.5-inch vertical. And I believe this young man's broad jump was reported at somewhere. Hang on, let me find him real quick, guys. Dallas Turner's broad jump was reported at 127 inches. Okay. So 127-inch broad jump, 40.5 or whatever it was in terms of that vertical, and then a 161 or better 10 split. Guys, when you're looking at your 10 split, when you're looking at your vertical, when you're looking at your broad jump, when you take those 3 numbers together, that gives you an idea of the type of prospect you're dealing with, the explosion. Those are explosion numbers. You're looking for the explosion. That's why I say don't pay attention to the full 40. Like, I'm not saying it has no importance. I'm saying people overpay importance to that. And you need to get down dirty into the analytics and understand what these numbers mean. The 10 split, that vertical jump, and then that broad jump, when you're looking at these numbers, when you start seeing certain things come together, now you're looking at explosion. That was Dallas Turner's numbers, right? Another guy's like 6'4", just under 250 pounds. A dude a lot of people think has some room to put more weight on the frame, right? Is a guy that they think needs to get stronger at the next level. They think needs to add to that frame. They think he can. They don't think he's fully grown into the frame yet, right? That's a consensus from a lot of the scouting department stuff, is that they feel like this dude could get bigger in the frame. Now you know those numbers, right? Now you know those numbers. I want you to go around and I want you to take a look at my guy, Jalyx Hunt, and what he came in at the combine at, right? 6'3", 6'3.5-ish, 252 pounds, 34.38 inches in the arm reach, right? 82.75, almost 83 inches in the wingspan. Rangy. Long, tall, rangy dude, right? Not Josh Sweat, but think of Josh Sweat's role inside the defense, guys, okay? What did he do in terms of the testing? He put up a 4.6 4.40. Never trust full 40 times, though, guys. This is where the beauty is. In that 4.6 4.40, he put up a 1.610 split, a 37.5-inch vertical, and a 128-inch broad jump. So you ask me, hey, Gabe, they moved up, so I don't think that this Jalyx Hunt valuation has anything to do with, like, Marshawn Nealand. I don't think it has anything to do with Braylon Trice. I don't think it has anything to do with Chris Braswell. I think those are separate cases to where that was a Cooper DeJean rating over those 3 guys, not Jalyx Hunt. But we were in position at some point or some time with guys such as Jonah Elliss, 76 overall, right? Braylon Trice, technically 74th overall. Guess you could make that argument that they could have moved up from 78. If they wanted Trice or Jonah Elliss, they could have made a move forward, right? Adisa Isaac, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, the Penn State guy, guys. He was picked right ahead of the Eagles. Eagles that could have been their target. We don't know, right? And to be fair, if you look at Adisa Isaac's numbers, he was 6'4", 247 pounds, 33.88 inches in the arm reach, 81-inch wingspan. He ran a 4.7 440, but with a 1.63 split, 34.5-inch vertical, 123 broad jump, and then he had some crazy numbers in terms of like a 7.01 3-cone. Very fluid in the hips, guys, right? Could have been, I don't know that part, right? But what I do know is when I looked at Jalyx Hunt's numbers and I saw the size profile and I saw the testing, I think that the Eagles are looking at this situation and saying, we have a raw prospect. It's going to frustrate us, right? I don't know that off the jump, we're going to be happy when a guy like Chris Braswell is pretty good from Alabama, right? I don't know if we're going to be happy if Marshawn Nealon is pretty good for Dallas, and I do like Marshawn Nealon. I'm not going to sit here in front because Dallas picked him. I like the player, right? Braylon Trice, who went to Atlanta, right? Braylon Trice is older. He's 23 years old, to be honest, okay? I don't know. I don't know if he's going to have that initial, right? I doubt that. I think there's a little bit of development that has to occur with this player. So these guys might have that, upper hand early on. But I think what the Eagles are doing here is, I think what the scouting world is doing here is they're saying, hey, look, man, at the end of the day, when we look at Jalyx Hunt, we look at a guy that, like Dallas Turner, if this dude played at a bigger school, we're not talking about him at the end of the third round. This is because he played at what used to be Houston Baptist, but became Houston Christian or whatever it is now. Because he played this level of competition, came from Cornell, converted safety down to the defense. They're looking at the upside, guys, is that you can't teach the measurables. You can't teach the fluidity. You can't teach his ability naturally to bend and flatten around the edges. Those things you cannot, you can teach to an extent, but you can't fully teach it. There's some athletic ability to that, right? I think they're looking at this and they're seeing the upside, guys. They're seeing that projection, right there. The projection here is that this young man has a high ceiling. And that's why they may have been a little bit more enamored with him than other guys. And you also got to look at this, the evaluation the rest of the league gave you, right? So Jalyx Hunt gets picked at 94, I want to say, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 94 we took him at, Jalyx Hunt. The next guy to be selected was Xavier Thomas at pick number 138. So we're talking 44, 45 picks down the road, right? Then you got you got Xavier Hunt, you got Austin Booker comes in at 144, Brennan Jackson at 154. You go the entire fourth round, no one takes, an edge player. So I think the Eagles are looking at it like this. And I often see people get this point wrong. Well, they go, you could have got that guy in the fourth. Well, the thing is that when these teams align their boards, they're not looking at it like third versus fourth. They're looking at it in terms of like picks number, let's say 80 to like pick number 115. There's a grouping of guys that they all like in this area, right? And they think these dudes are going to fall in that area. So when you're looking at this, if the Eagles had a very high pick in the fourth round, they were picking one of the first 4 or 5 picks in the fourth round, might they have gambled that on him? I think it's reasonable to suspect that maybe they would have, but they didn't have that pick, guys. Could make the argument, well, they could have moved up. I mean, they really wanted to move up to the top of the fourth. They probably could have enticed somebody to move off of one of their picks because we had an arsenal in the second half. It's true. They took their guy where they took him, guys. They took him because they saw that after him, they felt like there was a major drop-off. I cannot answer honestly. I'm being upfront and honest, guys. I cannot answer upfront and honest how they felt about Adisa Isaac, the kid from Penn State, who went one pick ahead, right? Maybe they were hoping Jonah Elliss fell to them at 78 and he got picked at 76, right? Maybe they like Braylon Trice, who got picked at 74 when they were at 78. I don't know. I think all those are legitimate questions to ask. I don't have the answer for that, guys. I'm not in the building. But I do know the player. I do know the prospect. I know what was shown to us, guys. I know what I saw in terms of like what they were doing pre-draft and the kind of players they were coveting. I know that they threw some outliers out there, right? Like when you look at a guy like Muhammad Kamara, I think we got to remember what Muhammad Kamara is. Shorter arms, 32 inches in the arm reach, only 6'1". I think they did like the young man. And I think if they didn't land their guy where they got him, Jalyx Hunt, I do think that's a guy that later in the draft, 5th round, 6th round, I do think it's a guy they would have probably targeted. I do think that they like that player. I do think he was an outlier. And I did write about him on Twitter, guys, as being an outlier. I can't remember. Let me see which series of posts it was. I think it was this series of posts where I was writing, and I talked about him being kind of an outlier and not to, not to just discount it because it doesn't meet the profile, that there are outliers that the Eagles will look at. You just have to understand why they're looking at an outlier to like what we know their preferences are. So I'm going to go to the share screen, guys, and I'll try to pull that up. We'll go here, we share it, and I'll find that one, that tweet where I was kind of talking about them. So yeah, hang on, let me go up to 2 and then we'll go up to, okay. So some notes on edge rushers between rounds 2 through 4 for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Top 30 visits remaining at this position all have impressive arm reach, wingspan, around 34 inches and 80 inches plus in the wingspan, right? Muhammad Kamara is an outlier. He had a private workout with Washburn. He's only 6'1", 32 inches in the reach, right? I said Muhammad Kamara might be smaller within the analytics, but we did have coffee with Latu, who's tall, but only 32.625 inches in the reach. So he's under 33 inches, to be honest. And Chop, athletically gifted as crap at 32.5 inches in the reach. We did have a cup of coffee with Chop as well. I wouldn't automatically write him off, but then I brought up Jalyx Hunt for you guys. You have to know why there's outliers and why they're looking at the outliers, guys. But yes, I mean, you can make the argument that they were looking at outliers, right? That Kamara was an outlier. I'm just more so, guys, the reason I'm showing you this information is to show you why Muhammad Kamara went further down the board than a lot of the other guys did, right? Like, I think if you were just judging off of raw talent, Kamara probably should have been a higher pick, to be honest. But because there's a size profile to this, he's only 6'1", 32 inches in the arm reach. Like some teams are going to be off on that just alone playing down on the edge. But I mean, look at Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham's like 6'2", 32 some inches in the arm reach, and he's got that grown man strength. So, I mean, just because a dude has those type of traits does not mean that they're not violent and strong at the line of scrimmage and cannot completely disrupt in that area. They can't stack and shed somebody on the edge. I do caution people to be careful with that. You know, that there is some reason to say like, hey man, sometimes these things are a little subjective in terms of rating the player. Let's get to some comments, guys, before I jump off here. I want to see what you guys are thinking here. I'm doing the best I can do, guys, to give you the answers to this, right? I'm not in the building. I know Payton Wilson very well. Been around that program, NC State, forever. And I can give you my input, my insight to like what was going on at the edge position and kind of how the board shook out. What's up, Philly 416? How you doing, buddy? What's up, Cody? How you doing, man? What's up, Hyder? Great show, man. Hey, man, I appreciate you, Sean. Thank you, buddy. Imagine going into 2025 with Nakobe Dean and Payton Wilson as our 2 starting injury-prone linebackers. Clifton, what's good, buddy? He said, love the undrafted picks and the O-line. We have some monsters. I think they always do a really good job at scouring the undrafted market and coming up with some pretty solid names. Love how this roster is looking already. We all know Howie is not done. We're all in this year. Yes, I think his moves would definitely indicate that, Philly 416. What's up, China? How you doing? She said, hey, Coach, Howie made magic this draft. 100% agree. I think he did a great job. The Eagles got Jalyx to do what Reddick wouldn't. Fangio is going to line him up everywhere. Baldinger said he's one of the most underrated prospects in the draft. He's a guy that has a lot of intriguing qualities, traits to him as an edge rusher. It's very raw, Eagles fan, to be quite honest. But there's reason to be somewhat excited about the young man's potential. I don't think he's going to be the Reddick role. I think he's going to be a little bit more of the Josh Sweat role, to be honest. I think he's a little bit more longer. He's got a little bit more of that reach there, but we'll see. Payton Wilson is going to be a star in this league. Good player. He's a good player, Chris. It's not to throw shade at him. I know the young man. I respect the young man's game. He was a very good player for NC State. But there were some complications. I'm not going to lie, Chris. There were complications with him. Patrick said, and they've been successful with projects like Malata, for example. Yeah. I mean, we've had our misses, of course. I mean, all this stuff it's lottery tickets. We all know that these are lottery tickets. And we've had Davion Taylor and things like that go wrong, but you're right. We've also had the Jordan Malatas that have been, paid incredible dividends towards us for taking a chance on those type of projects. Eagles fan said people had the same attitude when the Eagles drafted Milton Williams over Asante Samuel Jr. We got it right. Yeah, Milton's a good player, but to be fair, Our original target that year, Eagles fan, if you remember, wasn't Asante Samuel Jr. per se. Remember, we had that early third round pick and we traded back trying to acquire picks. And you know how he was trying to work the board like he did this year. And Detroit saw what we were doing. They jumped us and they took Aleem McNeil, who was our original target. But plan B was Milton Williams, and they got the board right, man. I mean, they clearly had the board right, Eagles fan, to go from, Aleem McNeil is a really good player in the NFL as well. But Milton Williams, I think, is an untapped potential guy that I think has a lot of upside as well. I'm glad we ain't get Wilson. I would extend Milton Williams right now. He's extremely underrated and will show out this year. Yeah, I think Milton's a good player, man. I do. I think he's an underrated run defender, by the way, for a guy that's not the heaviest in the world, doesn't have the longest arms in the world, just has violent hands. What's up, Sean? How you doing, buddy? What do you think they will do with corner based off contracts and draft? That's an excellent question, Cody. I think the conversation has to start at what they do at nickel and safety, because that's the area I think where it's a little up for debate in terms of like, what exactly are they viewing Cooper DeJean as? Cooper DeJean. Let me say it correctly. Cooper DeJean. Well, how are they valuing him, like in terms of the alignment? Do they see him as a tall slot, a corner, nickel corner, or do they see him more as a safety? In my opinion, Cody, and this is opinionated before they take the field, right? I don't know how much it's worth, guys. We have to see them on the field and how they're aligning them before I start going on the record with things. I think they see him as a hybrid safety nickel type, right? The role that he played early on in Iowa, where he's playing that cash kind of role. We don't have a cash linebacker role in Philly, but that idea of being tough-minded, especially on the strong side of formations, when you're in that quarters or when you're in those mixed coverages that are based out of quarters, having that strong-minded guy who, when the ball gets spilled outside to him, he's got to fill. I think that's where Coop could be really good as either a tall nickel safety type. Him read battleship together on the field together could be quite intriguing, especially when you got a center fielder on the back end that can really, really play well too. And that's CJ Gardner-Johnson. It's intriguing, guys. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, I'm excited to see what that young man can do inside the system. Darius Slay is the other guy that, we're hoping we can keep it together for another year or so. Age is undefeated, so we got to see where he's at on the year, but I'm excited what the secondary could be if you've got, Quinyon Mitchell to one side, Darius to the other. You got, Coop playing like some kind of a hybrid safety nickel role. You got Reed on Blankenship on the field. Then you got, CJ Gardner-Johnson. I like that a lot. Then you can figure, like, my thing is that if Avonte Maddox doesn't win, I think Avonte Maddox is the most natural slot guy. I see a lot of talk around, and I think he's the best slot if you're just judging talent that's on the team. But he's injury prone, and I don't know what you do with that if you're the Eagles. Like, the guy can play. How much do you trust him? Because if he doesn't win the starting job, why keep him on there? I mean, Tyler Hall is more than capable of being a backup. Tyler Hall is more than capable of giving you quality minutes, right? Then you got Sidney Brown to come in and rotate in with this whole idea of Cooper DeJean, Blankenship, Sidney Brown, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like, there's something here, man. The secondary's got something here, Cody. I don't know exactly how it's all going to look when it's all said and done, but there's some intrigue here, right? There's definitely some intrigue. I'm also hoping Kelly Ringo gets a little run. I mean, we don't need him to get too much time, but I mean, get the guy a couple hundred snaps on the season, getting prepared for what's going to be coming up down the road, especially if he's going to be one of those guys that's going to factor into the equation once Darius Slay is gone. Vincent said, "What's up, coach? When he's ready, he will play. He wouldn't see the field this year. Fangio has a way of getting the best out of linebackers." Yeah, I agree, Vincent. I don't know how long that will take. I think he's probably going to see, I don't know, maybe 200 or so snaps on the season. It's probably where I would estimate it. It may even be lighter than that, to be quite honest, if we're being real. But I do think that there's going to be that gradual production and that gradual, movement up in importance, because after this year, we got to have answers there. We have to have answers at that edge spot, and I do think you're going to see his workload increase. Now, what I'm hoping the Eagles find out is they got a guy like in Zach Bond or another guy that can factor into the rotation that maybe we can still sign at a reasonable price. And that's a conversation we're going to have on another video, guys. I do want to talk about the edge position in terms of the rotation and to talk about pressure rates. there's some things to consider here, right? I mean, we've got to be better in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. That part is definitely true. GSO, yes, sir. Eagles got Landon Dickerson over Asante Samuel Jr. What's up, Gates? Just woke up. Glad to catch you. What's up, Drew? How you doing, buddy? Hey, appreciate you tuning in, man. Lonely B said, I'm curious of your evaluation of Johnny Wilson. When you get to him, he was injured for some games this year and statistically outproduced Keon Coleman on a per-game basis. Coleman was a second-rounder. Yeah, I got some information on Johnny Wilson. Like during his course of his time at Florida State, I got a chance to see him play. Especially, this past year, I got to see him play NC State and actually frustrate me a little bit with his ability. He's a big dude. I mean, you're talking about a 6'6" receiver. But yeah, we'll get into it. I was shocked, Lonely B. I was concerned that they saw him as a tight end. I was like, I wouldn't go there yet. I mean, if the guy can't separate and we're having the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside problem at the next level, that's one thing. But I would give the man time and run as a boundary, receiver before I start trying to convert him into a tight end. But I see why people are doing that because he's already like 230 pounds. What's your thought on the running back from Clemson battling for the second team reps with Gainwell? Shipley. Look, Shipley had like younger Shipley was a really good prospect, to be quite honest. Will Shipley was a really good prospect early. I think he's underrated as a receiver. I don't think Clemson gave him enough run and enough time as a receiver. I think that battle between Shipley, Kenny Gainwell, and there's the young man they brought over from the 49ers, who I think is also going to really factor in to the rotation here. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to look him up on the team website. I apologize. But I think those three guys, looking at it from like the 2-minute back to the third down back to potentially getting some reps in the goal line. I hope they don't pull Saquon too much, though. I want to be, let's not get too cute with pulling Saquon around the goal line. I felt like we've done that in the past with other running backs. Tyron Davis-Price, the young man we got from the 49ers, who's a really, really good pass protection back. That's Shipley's weakness, in my opinion. He's a little concerning in terms of pass pro. I want to see if he upticks it at the next level, right? I think that competition between Kenny Gainwell, Shipley, Tyron Price, Davis, I think that's going to be a really, really good competition in camp. What do you think about this lineup? Outside corners, Mitchell and Slay, slot DeJean, free safety, Reed, strong safety, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Michael, I don't know until they take the field, to be honest, but yeah, that's what I kind of was talking about earlier, is a hybrid role for DeJean as a kind of a flex safety nickel type. If that happens and Avonte Maddox doesn't win the starting job, I would assume they're going to move on from Avonte Maddox. It just doesn't make sense to keep him in as a backup. He's a starting quality player, but they've got a guy here. They've got a guy here from the Raiders who I think is a starting, a solid backup with some potential for starter, being a starter down the road. Isaiah Rodgers is another guy to watch. I don't know if they're going to play him outside or inside. Primarily he's played outside in his time in the NFL, has all the movement skills of an inside guy, though. So, I mean, I'm curious of how they line these dudes up, Michael. I think you're feeding into what a lot of people have questions about, what a lot of people are excited about, which is how are these dudes going to, how are they going to mix these guys all up? Like, if you're trying to project 6 dudes, it's a complicated projection right now, right? I mean, where does Eli Ricks fit on that? Where does, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely some interesting questions there. And we also got to keep in mind, if you're going to play on this roster as a backup, you got to have special teams, quality, special teams production. Show enough. What's good, buddy? How you doing, man? Dank, what's good, buddy? How you doing, man? Said he's excited for the season. Michael said we have plenty of corners. Who do you think's getting let go? I mean, I think the common sense one is Bradbury's probably gone. I mean, I'd be shocked if he's on the roster. I'm not going to say like it's 100%, but I'd be genuinely shocked if he's still on the roster, to be quite honest. I think Avonte Maddox, if he does not win the spot, I think he's gone. Outside of that, guys, I mean, then I think it's a toss-up. I think you got to select the 6 that you think are going to be good players, have potential in futures in Philly, who will need to be protected because if you cut them, we'll get claimed. That's the other side of things. And then you got to look at special teams production, like who can play special teams, like who can, who could be those guys who can fill out that roster in that way. Wouldn't Blankenship be more suited for strong safety? I think that's, what he put, Drew. Maybe I misread it. I may have misread it, guys. But yes, that's how I see him as well. Gate, what's up? I can't wait to see who the new players that step up and become the new face of the defense. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, right, to see like who's going to be some of the heart and soul, right? I think CJ Gardner-Johnson's here to bring a little bit of moxie. Like, but yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is an interesting conversation around that. You know, being a guy that in time, you know, he's a rook right now. I don't expect that from him right this second, but in time, you know, I'm curious. We really need Nakobe Dean to stay healthy, man. I mean, I think Nakobe is a pretty dang good run defender. I think he's a guy that got blamed for a lot of weak, soft coverages, soft zone crap they kept throwing him into, and it wasn't really his fault a lot of the times. But at the same time, like he did allow guys to cross his face. He didn't protect the hash mark. There were some things he didn't do from a coverage standpoint that you got to be better at. But that linebacker group is a little thin. I'd like to see another body added just for competition and security. But I do like the 4 guys. I don't know if they're going to go 5. I saw some people doing 5 deep on their mocks for the 53. I don't know if they're going to go that yet, but I do think Orion Burks is a really good backup. I do think that having Jeremiah Trotter Jr. here to work in as a backup who might potentially take over a starting job, right? I like the bet that they're taking on White, you know, kind of redeeming himself and being a guy that gets a big paycheck following this season. Nakobe's got to be that dude, though, man. Nakobe's got to show us that he can be something in this league. Like, I think all the skill sets there got to stay on the field. Like, you don't stay on the field, there's nothing any of us can do. I mean, we can say whatever we want to. You don't stay on the field, man. There's nothing that can be done for you. Gates, with all these defensive backs, who do you evaluate? How do you evaluate with so many bodies at defensive back? I think you got to divide it up in terms of how you see your nickel corners, your slot guys, how you see your, you know, boundary side corners, how you see your field side corners, how you see that safety rotation working out. It's an interesting one, right? Because I think Cooper DeJean is one of the main names that we need to see right now. We need to see exactly how they're going to stack him, exactly how they're going to value him. I don't know the answer to that right now, Drew, until we see him in camp, man. I mean, my assumption is he's going to play some kind of hybrid nickel kind of, you know, safety role that gets him on the field early. But, you know, it will be interesting. This draft was mostly about the future. Sweat is gone next year. Maybe. I wouldn't count him completely out, Vincent. But, yeah, I think that you have to look at it and say that there's a possibility, a strong possibility, that we could be down one of the big, you know, kind of names that we've had over the last few years at edge. Like, you know, we could be down both guys that gave us a really nice run to the Super Bowl. Both those dudes could potentially be gone. But I also think there is a road or a bridge back, if we're being honest, for Josh Sweat. But that's also that's going to be off the evaluation. It's going to be off of what gets shown to us, you know, during this season from the rotation they have there. Like, can these guys make it to where, yeah, Sweat revives his career, Sweat revives, you know, what he was doing, but there's just not room for him. He's just not going to be a starter anymore because we got a first-round pick. We got a guy we're already paying $18 million to, and those dudes have earned their time to be on the field now. So unless he's willing to take some kind of contract that's more indicative of a third-down specialist, you know what I mean? Like, I just, you know, I think that's what you got to look for, Vincent, is can those dudes push him out, right? That's the thing. He's got to get pushed out. What's up, Josh? How you doing, brother? You say, hey, brother, appreciate the insight into the draft. Keep up the good work. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Pierce, do you think the UDFA Milton have a chance to make the team? Which one are you? Hang on, guys. I'm not too sure I know which player you're referring to. Let me go down, guys, because I still haven't gone through all the unsigned guys yet. It takes some time to really run through some of the information here. So wait a minute. They're not giving me any of the UDFAs yet. Austin Watkins Jr. is here on it. Sorry, guys. I'm looking through the list of who we have in camp right now. Mustafer, McPherson, McKee, McCollum, Mann, Mulata, Maddox. So, yeah, they don't have the UDFAs even listed on the roster. So, hang on. I know there was a tracker for them. UDFA tracker. Sorry, guys. Let me pull the tracker up and then that'll give us an idea of what's going on. One day ago, we scroll down to the Eagles. All right, Philly. Boom. So, Kendall Milton. My bad, guys. You're talking about the running back. Kendall Milton. It's a good question. I'm not going to sit there and say that I have enough before me because I have to evaluate not just Milton. I got to evaluate the entire running back room as a whole and then see the fits. I got to think about that. I got to see what he would be if you're looking at him in terms of like being a 2-minute offense, hurry up, goal line, like, that kind of role, third down back. Like, how does he fit in terms of that conversation? Or is he more of like, oh, this is the guy that might take the bulk of carries if something were to happen? Is he more of that, break in case of emergency kind of back that you just hang on the roster in case something happens? And then that's the guy you're going to bring into. I got to evaluate that, to be honest, Michael. So I have to look that over, but I'll definitely take a look at it for you. Milton, the running back. That's the UGA kid, I believe, right? Milton, running back. I believe he's out of UGA. So how do you think they will use Cooper DeJean? I think he's going to be like this hybrid kind of like nickel safety kind of role. I think that's what he's going to do here in Philly. But, we don't really know until they line him up, Josh. I mean, right now we're just taking stabs in the dark until they line him up. And we see exactly how they're aligning him. They gave him $250,000 of guaranteed money. It's pretty substantial. What up, 2020? How you doing, man? You guys talking about Lou Nichols as well? Yeah, it's going to be exactly, Michael. I agree with what you're saying here. It's like Lou Nichols at running back was great in college. All these players and not enough grass time to really figure it out. Yeah, I feel like sometimes, too, they've already pre-selected who they're going to have on the roster, and it's really up to these guys to kind of really unseat somebody. And it's got to be definitive in the way that they unseat them. And then, I think that can be kind of tough to do. Hey, my son. What's good, man? How you doing, bro? Just got back from Bolivia. Oh, snap. Okay, you out in Eastern Europe, huh? I saw you and I thought, man, I was gone a long time seeing your white hair. It looks good. Great comments as always. Dang, bro, you had to burn me like that? Yeah. Yes, sir. That's what happens when you have a little bit of red. That red turns white pretty quickly, sir. I'm at that point where I could dye it or just embrace it. I think I'm just going to embrace it, man. Philly says CJ Gunner playing center field. Yeah, I agree. Can you see DeJean taking over for Blankenship's starting position? Blankenship is better coming off the bench. It's tough, Vincent. I think people are a little down on Blank. I think he's a better player than he's being credited with. But I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a possibility either, Vincent. I mean, yes, it is. It's clearly a possibility. If they see him as a safety, I think they see him as a strong safety. I think, yeah, sure. I think that is possible. Philly 416. It's a great question, sir. Says, where do you see Eli Ricks in all of this? Great question. That's what I was saying. Like, draw out your six. It gets kind of complicated, right? I mean, if I did a quick miss, I said Darius Slay, right? I said Quinyon Mitchell. Okay, so now it comes down to, like, how am I going to – what I think would happen, okay? Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, okay? Then I would say from here – I don't know if they would keep Avante, but I'm just going to say Avante until someone surpasses him. And I don't think that that's out of the reason that he gets surpassed. Like I said, if he's not the starter, I think he's off the team. But I'm going to say Slay, Mitchell, Avante, right? Now you get into these backups, right? I think Isaiah Rodgers is probably going to be the main backup with the potential to win and usurp that role there. So now we're down to 4. You got a guy you just drafted and guy that is liked on the team in Kaylee Ringo. That's 5. For me, the next guy would be Eli Ricks. Okay. But here's the problem with this, right? This is why I think you'd have to use. I think this is why if you do this, you have to kind of either keep 7 defensive backs or you have to use a guy like Cooper DeJean in a hybrid role. I think he's got to be a hybrid player. So then you got to go over to safety, right? And you got to say CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? You got to say Reed, Blankenship, right? Sidney Brown. And then I think I would put, like I said, this is a hybrid player, but I think I would put then Cooper DeJean. I'd put him as a hybrid player, and that'd be probably the way I would keep. If I was only going 10, 10 deep. That's how I would do it. And then I think you keep a nickel on the practice squad. So I don't know if you can sneak a guy onto the practice squad. But if you can sneak a dude onto the practice squad, because if you don't do that, then you're dependent upon Isaiah Rodgers to really be a guy that plays like pretty much backs up every single alignment, or you're depending upon Cooper DeJean to have the kind of flexibility to play safety or nickel, depending upon where the need rises, because, death, taxes, and Avonte Maddox getting injured seems to be guarantees at this point, right? I like Avonte. I think Avonte is a super talented player. I think if you're putting Avonte out there with all the experience he has in the league, the fluidity in which he moves his hips and what he can do in coverage, I think he's going to stand out compared to everybody else. The problem is I don't know how much I can depend upon him. And I really like Avonte. I'm not a guy, you guys know me. I'm not someone who's going to just throw shade at him. I'm just stating the obvious is that he's been injured a lot. It's not a talent thing with Avonte. It's an injury thing. So I don't know how to judge that, because there's also the young man that everybody has been talking about recently who came over from Vegas, who's, he's a guy that I think you have to give some credence to, some credibility to say, this is a young man that, look, they might just feel more comfortable with projecting him to be a full-time starter. And he hasn't been that in the league. So I don't know, like Tyler Hall. I don't know if Tyler Hall would be safe to try to put on the practice squad. But if I got Avonte, I'm probably going to try to do everything I can to keep Tyler Hall as long as I can from the Eagles. So if I went a seventh guy, it'd probably be Tyler Hall, just because I think you better have a backup plan at nickel corner. Now, the other option is you can take Cooper DeJean and put him in as a starter. Then I think you move Avonte Maddox off your roster, and then I think you add another corner, right? And you're just going to go C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Blank, and Sidney Brown in the secondary. You'll carry safety on the practice squad, and I think you add Tyler Hall as a seventh defensive back. So in that case, you go Slay, Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Isaiah Rodgers, Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, and then I think you go essentially with the young man from Vegas. I think you put him on your roster at that point as the seventh guy. I think then you take Tyler Hall and you make Tyler Hall that seventh defensive back. It's hard to say, guys, about these dudes, man. I've got to see them in camp. I got to see them, up against other competition and how they fare. I got to see them in game. I mean, Eli Ricks did not have a spot on this roster until preseason. And then it got to the point to where it became almost impossible to remove him off the roster. I don't know. I mean, we got to see these dudes. We got to see these dudes play. That's a very good question, guys. I don't know that I have the answer in early May right now. That's a tough one. Trot Jr. and Devin White could work. Yeah, depending on what Devin White's contract would look like if he really does come to the forefront after the season. You know what I mean? Long term, I don't know. I don't know how that would be. Yeah, Michael's coming in with, would you select 7 corners and just have 3 running backs? I mean, you could steal from the running back position, offensive line. You could steal from the offense in general, or you could just steal from the safeties, carry a guy on you. If you're counting Cooper DeJean as a corner, then you could just carry 7, leave Avonte Maddox off your roster because he's clearly not going to probably start at nickel at that point. There's no point in keeping him. So then you carry Hall on as the 7th, I think. Do you think the Eagles will play a 34? What's up, Demi? They're going to play a hybrid front. So Fangio runs a hybrid front just like his other guys do. But yes, you'll see a lot of 34 stuff. You're going to see a lot of 34 stuff. But it's going to be more so 3-3-5 nickel crap that they do out of that. And then you'll see some hybrid fronts where they're running 4-man fronts. But a lot of that has to do with the gap integrity they play with, and then also the alignment of the interior defensive line to kind of, figure out if they're really in a hybrid 30 front that just looks like a 40 front if you're looking across the line, but in reality it's a 30 front. You're going to see some hybrid stuff, in my opinion. I could see White and Trotter starting eventually. Possibly. I think Trout's a pretty good pickup, guys. I think that's a really, really, really good pick to find in the 5th round, to be honest. Do you see Trotter Jr. getting significant playing time this year, special teams, only knowing the Eagles? I mean, even if he's not the starter once week 1 rolls around, I mean, just given the nature of linebackers, we were very fortunate in 22 that, TJ Edwards and Kaiser White didn't miss any significant time. That has not been the case for most seasons with, stacked off-ball linebackers. Those dudes get hurt. So I do think there's a chance that he will see some playing time at some point. I really hope they stick to a 43. Folks in the chat is crazy. Where I hit that like button. Appreciate you, Philly. My guy Carlos, what's good, buddy? Says Gate salute. Who do you see as our starting secondary and linebackers by the time game one rolls around? Yeah, we're just kind of talking about that, Carlos. I don't know offhand, man. I think it's a tough question to answer in May. I think there's a couple of alignments you could see here, right? I mean, I think you can see Slay, Mitchell, and Maddox with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship. And then you're going to see Cooper and Sidney Brown get play time. You're going to see Isaiah Rodgers get play time, in my opinion, right? I think you could see a situation to where it's Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, and then Cooper DeJean playing the nickel role, right? Maddox is off the team. So because Maddox is off the team, I think you have to add back to the, that corner spot, that nickel spot. So then I think you put Tyler Hall on the roster and you're carrying 7 in terms of your corners. And then I think from there, it's CJ Gardner-Johnson, and then it's going to be a battle between Reed and Cooper DeJean for that strong safety role. Like, a lot of mix and matching you could do there, right? There's definitely a lot that could be done there. Yeah, that's the problem, Michael. He's a good player. I think he's a really good run defender, honestly. I think he's very underrated as a run defender. I think he's very instinctual. He's hurt a lot. He's got to reverse that narrative, man. There's just nowhere to go with it. I mean, there's no way of pushing back against the standpoint, Michael, without him giving us at least one healthy season. Drew said, agree at Gate City Sports. I think Dean got a bad rap. He was one of the best tacklers last season, supported the run. Everyone had issues at coverage. Yeah, I think it was more schematic than anything, Drew, when it comes to what was going on the underneath stuff. I mean, there was a couple of things that it was technique-wise he got beat. But, yeah, I mean, he's got to stay healthy, Drew. And that's the thing is, like, there's just no way of defending him if he can't stay healthy. Like, if he gets injured again, I think it's a wraps. It's a lot of pressure for the young man. Let's talk Jalen Carter, coach. What's up, Vince? He said, do you think he takes that next level into the elite defensive tackle group? He needs to learn to stop leading with his down. The offensive line caught wind and slowed him down. I think that this is the year that he takes over as the guy in terms of that defensive line. I think he's going to be the guy that everything kind of starts and ends with. He's the guy that, like, when Kelsey was talking and he was saying that there's only 2 people in his career he's ever encountered that were, scheme did not matter. He talked about Jason Peters and he talked about Fletcher Cox. Scheme never mattered to those 2 guys. Like, those dudes would fit any scheme you ever put them in. I think Jalen Carter is that next guy. I think he's that kind of level of talent. What's up, iDrip? Yeah, me too, man. Can't wait for preseason with these young guys. 2020 said, I don't buy the hype of Jalyx. Heard it before. Sharif Miller, Davion Taylor, Teron Jackson, Alex McAllister. We barely got any good edges in round 1. Nolan, Marcus Smith, Derek Barnett. We'll see, man. I wouldn't write him off yet, 2020. I wouldn't write him off just yet. Wasn't Davion literally, he's injured? He had a role when Nick first got here. He was going to have a role in this team, and he got injured, and then he just kind of fell out of favor. Do I see us getting another pass rusher? I mean, potentially, depending on how things shake out in terms of the market, depending on how things go in the preseason and in camp and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, they might look over and say, like, yeah, we just don't have enough, But it's hard to say right now. We getting our defensive end in next year's draft? Robert said we need a linebacker that's actually 6'3". Our linebackers are small. Sixers getting there, but whooped, y'all. Not looking good. Getting their butt whooped, y'all. My bad. Running back, I got you, Michael. I figured it out after a second or two. Yeah, Kendall, the 5-star. Have you ever considered applying for a scout position with the Eagles? I think my wife would kill me, Jonathan. It's very time consuming to be a scout, guys. It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, if the Eagles offered that, would I take it? I mean, even if I didn't stick with it long term, would I probably take it? Yeah. Just to say I did it, just to say I did it with the Philadelphia Eagles, probably so, But I don't know, lie to you. I think my wife would be ticked because If she didn't like it when I was coaching, scouting is a completely different world. it's a lot more intense. How long is our Super Bowl window? As long as Howie can extend it, man. Eric, as long as Howie can extend it. I mean, I think as long as these guys stay young, you know what I mean? The offensive weapons, I think as long as they can hit and mix in things on defensively, that's the window, right? Ideally, you probably got 3 to 4 years if you can do it right. Do you really think we'll keep 4 quarterbacks? No, I doubt it. You might keep a 4th guy on the practice squad, but I don't think you'll keep 4 on the active 53. Drew says 6'3". I mean, the league don't really have that many big linebackers. Some of the best linebackers are not that big. So Mekhi Garner's out. I like Mekhi Garner, but I think he's a practice squad guy. I mean, look, if he comes in and out competes, Michael, I mean, if he out competes Eli Riggs or, it's all based upon the competition. But I mean, just judging off of what we saw last year, I was a big Mekhi Garner guy last year. I think Mekhi Garner is a really good special teams player. I think he's physical. I think he's a boundary corner or a safety convert. Someone that can be converted to safety, or he's a boundary corner in the league. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Vincent said he thinks they're going to keep 3 safeties and use Cooper DeJean as the hybrid corner safety. I think it's possible they use him as a nickel kind of safety, kind of hybrid player. I think it's possible. Got to have 10 secondary guys, 6 corners, and 4 safeties. Yeah, I think they might go. I think the question, Jonathan, is do they go 6-4 or 7-3? And do they use a guy like Cooper DeJean as kind of that hybrid role? And do they carry a 4th, a 4th guy on the practice squad, basically? Now, when we say 7, Jonathan, we're talking about corners. So we're talking about essentially your boundary corners, your field corners, your nickel corners. We're not talking about in conjunction with with your safeties. So we're talking specifically those 3 alignments. So we're saying, would they do 7-3, 6-4? And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that you view Cooper DeJean. Are you viewing Cooper DeJean as a safety, or are you viewing him as a nickel? You think they should sign Milton Williams to an extension? Schmilton. I don't know why I said that, guys. Or 7 corners, 3 safeties. Yeah. What's up, Vincent? He said Nakobe and Devin with Slay, Mitchell, DeJean, CJ Garner, Johnson, and Reed. Yeah, I think we got something going, guys. I think we got a good young youth. Good group of young guys, to be honest. Would you trade Bradbury for a 2025 5th round pick? I'm trading for a bag of Doritos right now, Michael. And I was a James Bradbury guy. You remember? I loved when we made that signing, man. I've been in the draft looking for that type of dude to play the boundary, the big physical guy with, the 32, 33-inch arm reach, guy with, close to an 80-inch wingspan, the guy that can really get in there and disrupt. There's been a few guys that have come out of the draft. You guys know that I was really high on that kind of fit that billing, right? Brent's last year that went to Indianapolis, the kid that went to the Cleveland Browns a couple of years ago. I've been high on a few of these dudes like that. So, I mean, this isn't any disrespect to Bradbury, because I do think that scheme matters with Bradbury. And I don't think he's as bad as he showed last year, but I also think it's time to turn the page. I think it's time to turn the page there. So, I mean, yes, if I can get a day 3 pick for James Bradbury, I'd take it in a heartbeat. Josh said not to be but you're a genuinely respectful dude to listen to. You act patient like a school teacher and are good about showing respect and grace to your guests. Thank you, Josh. It might help to know that I am a former school teacher. I taught social studies, sir, and I coached. Dante said, is it me or with Mitchell, Brown, CJ, Slay, Cooper, and Ringo? But did we get a lot more athletic in the secondary? Yeah, Dante, I think it's a reasonable thing to say. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're certainly more athletic in the secondary than we were before. Nearly our entire secondary are 4-3 and 4-4 guys now, except for like 2. Yeah, and even those dudes are pretty good at pursuit angles. For the first time, I feel like our backfield is better than our D line. That's an interesting take, and I don't necessarily disagree, Michael. I don't know how I completely feel about that, but I don't think you're out there in right field with that take. That could be true. I think it depends upon how you view Bryce Huff as a pressure rate guy, right? I'm not overly concerned about his run fit. I think there'll be some limitations there, but I also think Vic Fangio is very particular in the way that he does his run fits. And the only job he's going to have there is to seal and contain and push the ball outside. He's supposed to spill the ball. That's what his role is going to be in that system. So I'm not overly concerned. I do think we'll give a little up here and there with him, but it's a matter of, do you believe the win rate? If you look at that win rate, Michael, with Bryce Huff, dude was top 5 in win rate last year. Is that the type of guy we're going to have in terms of a pass rusher, right? Because that's what Hassan was in 23 or 22. Sorry. He was that kind of win rate guy, right? That kind of explosive guy. Do we have that again? I mean, it's an excellent question, man, because that take could be true. The Bill Belichick style of playing from the back to the front end, right? Pause. Yeah. You know what I meant. What's up? How you doing, Edwin? How you doing, buddy? For Deem, I'm not sure if the leash is that short for him, in my opinion. It is early in his career. Well, I mean, he's going into a third year of a fourth year contract, though, Drew. So if he's literally not able to finish the season, I think it depends on if he got injured, where it occurred. You know what I'm saying, Drew? How many snaps did he get? That kind of information would have to be kind of placed alongside of everything. But I do think it becomes quite a complicated situation if he's still hasn't logged more than 500 snaps, 600 snaps. You know what I mean? And now we're going into year 4 of the contract, and he's been injured all 3 years, or 2 years. First year wasn't really injury related, but yeah, I think it becomes a complicated thing. Doesn't necessarily close the door on him completely, but it becomes very complicated. What's up, Vince? He says Jalyx is nothing like any of those guys named, though. You have to take each prospect individually, like based on skill set and tools. If Jalyx played for a school like Bama, he would have been a top 50 pick. Yeah, you're talking about in terms of the comparisons to what's his name, Davion Taylor and guys like that. Gate, why would the Eagles draft Cooper DeJean, being that he has the same issues as Bradbury? If he's a safety, why pick him that early? I don't think safeties are that early in terms of the second round, GFAM. I think it's adequate area for where you're going to pick a safety. I think the question is if you're going to play him as a nickel. That's where it gets a little questionable, taking a nickel in the top 40. That's not something you normally see. That's why I'm calling it more of a hybrid. Do you view him as a hybrid safety nickel? I do think ultimately there's a possibility they kick him outside. I don't think that that's a an understatement. But you got to remember, B-Dawk and those dudes were drafted in the second round. The young man that they drafted out of Temple that didn't work out was a second round draft pick back in the early days of Howie, when Howie and it was when Howie and Andy were working together, when Andy was tuteling, had him underneath his tutelage. Those dudes were, we've shown the ability, we've shown we will do that from time to time. We'll take a safety high. That's not uncommon. I can't remember the last time they took one in the first round. So that was my issue when people said, would they take him at 22? My thing was just like, well, it depends. Like that's when I made the film on him, GFAM. That's why I said, it depends on how you view him. I think a lot of organizations would be hesitant in taking safety that high. Not everyone. Some teams will take safeties that high, but a lot of organizations wouldn't. But when you get into the second round, different evaluation now. And I think you're talking about adequately aligning position to the pick. Josh Allen, linebacker from the Jaguars. He's still a free agent. I don't think so, Clifton. I think he signed a huge contract. I think he got a huge extension. Is this a make or break year for Dallas Goedert? I mean, he should be that third receiver option, but so inconsistent. Haven't lived up to the hype. Still waiting on that breakout game in year. Well, I think he's had plenty of breakout games, Dante. I think he's lived up to the hype. I just don't think he's been healthy. I think that's been his problem. He would have eclipsed 1,000 yards receiving if he would just stay on the field more. He definitely would have gotten it over 22 and 21. I think he had opportunities if he'd have stayed healthy to eclipse that mark. But I think that missing those lengths of games, when you start missing 3 or 4 games, man, I mean, I think it becomes an incredibly difficult proposition to get over 1,000 yards receiving once you start missing that kind of time. I pray we mix it up and quit playing off ball on the defense. We now have some great kids that love to be aggressive, mix it up, and keep them guessing, win the game by eyeing the quarterback. I think you got guys that even when you play drop zone, they're aggressive, right? Proud Infidel. I think when you got these dudes that are super instinctive, they read the leverage of the player, the corner, or the receiver, and then they shoot and they drive on the ball. That's one of the things that like stands out about Quinyon Mitchell's film is the hip fluidity. What I saw more so on Cooper DeJean's film was angles, the angles he played the routes on. Like he's a little tight in the hips, he's a little sticky in the hips, but he's really, really good at figuring out the angle stuff. Like there was one play to where I was watching it, and the guy it was almost like a whip route kind of ordeal, and he caught Coop for a second on that whip route. He got some distance and some separation from him. But then Coop just beat him to the point of the football. He just understood the angle. It was like, yeah, I can just take this angle and take the ball away. Now, look, if he gambled and missed on that, there's a lot of open space there. But, I mean, the guy's got pretty good ball skills, man. Left out right. I would leave my job right now if the Eagles offered me a job just to say I did it. Yeah, exactly, Drew. Yeah. I don't know if I'd stick with it because it's very time consuming, but I mean, I would definitely do it for a couple of years just to put that on the resume. What's your opinion of Andre Sam? Some of these dudes, they're undrafted guys. I have not had the opportunity to get into their film like that yet. So, I mean, let me write them down for you, Fitness Warrior, and I'll take a look. Yeah, some of these guys, it's just hard to have this kind of time to put in the film study on them. But by the end of the summer, everybody's going to get covered. I know a lot of you guys were asking me if I'm going to do the 53-man roster thing again in terms of the guidebook. I'm going to try to do it before the release of the 53-man roster because that doesn't do any good, right? So that way I can highlight in on some of the camp battles and things like that. So ideally, I want to get it done before the beginning of August because basically you got to get it done before the end of July because I want to beat camp. I want to make sure that it's something that while camp's going on, there's this thing that you guys can read. I think what we'll do this year, last year I put a price on it. So this year, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it for donations. Like it'll be like a donate what you want, and then you'll receive it basically. Because I don't want to limit it. Because I know some of the, there's some young kids out there that, they don't have substantial income. I'm not going to try to charge them 10, 20 bucks or something like that. They can leave $1. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather get in their hands and get them to where they can start understanding the game at a certain level. Also, I'm working with my wife. We're trying to set some things up, guys, in terms of creating a website again. I want to create a newsletter and actually utilize the newsletter and actually be able to give some intel, give some insight into what's going on. But I got to think of how to do that in a way that's not spammy. Like that's the problem I have with newsletters. They become kind of spammy. I want to make sure it's not something that's spammy. That's actually like of use, of value. Like there's a reason to actually subscribe to it and have that access. I think there are some pretty good film study on Vic Fangio, but there would definitely be a lot of off coverage. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I agree. It's time to unleash that nasty Philly D. Michael said, if White balls out this year, would you give him the bag? I think it depends. I mean, the Eagles have shown the ability to pay a guy mid numbers. Right. I mean, Nigel Bradham got a mid-area contract with the Eagles, right? So I don't think they're as cheap as some people think. I think they would have signed TJ Edwards for what the Bears signed him for, but I think he wanted to play for the Bears. I just think that the Eagles were like, look, I mean, we can make this work. I mean, Howie knows how to make the money work, to fit what the Eagles want to pay there. But I just think that was a situation where the player wanted to return home. It's unfortunate because he was a homegrown talent that we developed, and he walked out the door. I mean, it stinks, but it is what it is. Samuel said, Gay CD, are you coming out with an overall review of the draft choices by the Birds along with the reasons behind the selections? I can do that in conjunction with doing the, kind of the idea of the training camp primer. I can do that over the summer if you guys want something like that. I can do that for free, guys. I won't charge you for that. I can give you like a primer on each guy because, I mean, we're not talking about a lengthy thing. It's different when I got to analyze 90 players, and it's a little different from analyzing 10, but yeah, I can do that. And I can maybe I could try to add in the UDFAs for y'all because that's not as, it's not as complex. So yeah, I can do that. Stu said, I'll trade Bradbury for a collect call from Helen Keller and Stephen Hawkins. Yeah, I hear you, man. Peace, brother. I probably missed it, but how do you feel about Jalyx Hunt? I think they drafted him in terms of like the prospect that he is. The fact that this is a guy that is incredibly athletically gifted. The only person I think who had more impressive testing numbers coming out of this combine was Dallas Turner. And Dallas Turner played at Alabama. This young man played at, Houston Christian. I always want to call it Houston Baptist, but Houston Christian. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think he's a good player, the Black Line. I definitely think he's a guy that's a good prospect to develop. I was quite impressed with what I saw from the Senior Bowl from him. Like, I wasn't there in person, but the film I've been able to watch on him from the Senior Bowl and just seeing what he did, it's like, wow, like this dude was actually pretty good. Like, no wonder he kind of climbed up some people's boards. And I don't think most of the time, guys, I don't think these dudes are climbing boards like people say, but there are some rare cases, like when a guy's coming out of a small school, gets in front of a certain level of competition and he starts to win. Then I think that dude definitely starts to elevate up boards. But yeah, for the most part, I think a lot of those things are a little hyped. But yeah, I think he had a really, really good Senior Bowl. What is your opinion on the Godfather Vic Fangio? The Godfather of the Fangio system. I mean, he's a guy that, is hit or miss with players. I mean, I don't think everybody enjoys working with him, but I do think that he does a pretty decent job. I mean, I think overall he does a good job. I think he's a guy that he's true to his values of not giving up the big play rate, but I do think that he will bring a little bit more of these simulated type pressures that are, generally speaking, they come from these creeper looks to where you're moving one of your edges out there to cover the flats, and then you have a replacement blitz that follows it. You're going to get four-man pressure. It's just where's it coming from? I think he's a little bit better at mixing that stuff up than some of the other guys that we've had in here. Dante said, on paper, Vic has everything he needs to produce a top 6 defense. What are the realistically expectations? I mean, look, I'll take top half of the league, Dante, and just get me the stops when the stops matter, right? Find the stops when the stops matter. I mean, would I love to have a lockdown, shutdown defense that's just dominating folks? Absolutely. But if you can just get me the stops when the stops matter and we can get double, digit leads on people and just run clock. Think of Tampa Bay early on last year, what we did to Tampa Bay early on, not the playoffs, but what we did to them, right? Where we got a double digit lead and then just completely drained the entire second half out on them. You can do that. You know what I mean? Like that's a big deal. Is Beckham Jr. still a free agent? It's a good question, Clifton. I don't know. Eagles going to regret passing on Cedric Gray for Project Jalyx. Subgate, I feel Siri needs to have our defensive tackles conditioned for the entire season. I hope he runs the heck out of the team. They were also gassed the last 3 games of the season, playoffs included. I think they got to be a little bit better in the rotation too, Ishine. I think sometimes that I thought last year in particular, we got away from the rotation. Look at Hassan's always played high numbers, but Sweat was over 800 snaps last year. Josh Sweat was. That's not normally what Josh did. He was splitting time with like Brandon Graham. Now Brandon Graham's getting up there in age. So I think it's best to keep Brandon around 300 or 400 snaps. But I mean, some of these other guys, like, however they view this, right? I mean, we got the young guy, we got a young rookie we drafted in the first round that's got to get more playing time. You got a guy here in Bond who I think can give you some key minutes there. I think they got to be a little bit more true to a rotation. And that's not even talking about the interior defensive line, to where I'm curious how they do things, right? Because some of this is on other guys to step it up a little bit, right? It can't just be Jalen Carter. It can't just be Milton Williams in obvious pass rush situations, right? Ajama's got to develop there. And he's got to show that he can do something, right? You look at a guy like Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis has got to factor in a little bit to those situations. He doesn't have to be like the main cog guy there, but I mean, those 20, 30% of the times he's on the field in a third and obvious passing situation, he's got to be a little disruptive, right? I mean, he needs to push the pocket. Give them some quality reps, give them some quality time, keep guys fresh. Thanks, friend. Yeah, bring back Buddy Ball. I was a trainer with Fisher and Gruden. What a ride. We were feared then. Hey. Samuel said, do you feel that Jim would be more aggressive in his checkdowns and approach to directing the offense play calling overall? Aggressive and confident. Thanks again. I mean, hard to say until the season starts, Samuel. I have high expectations and some reason to suspect that at minimal, he's going to be better at making sight adjustments versus pressure to get the ball out, basically replacing. It's just, it's pressure 101. Look to the overloaded side of the blitz and replace that defender with the football, right? Now, I do think that there were times last year that Jalen tried to do that, but some of the smarter coordinators trapped him. They trapped him, they caught him. I thought this is part of the problem with the Eagles is instead of running some quick underneath stuff to get separation and to get space, they were running a little bit more, kind of deeper progressing routes. They ran like it's not a dagger concept on one play that got picked off to where AJ was supposed to be the clear out guy. And you had Devontae Smith coming under on the dagger and they just fell right back into that zone. I think that was an example of them trying to do that. They looked to where they saw the overload, but that player it was a simulated pressure look where they came up to the line of scrimmage and they fell out of those B gaps and he fell right into the path of the ball. It's got to make sense is what I'm saying in terms of the route progression. Everything can't be over 20 yards. Like I know that Jalen's pretty good at throwing those balls. I know when teams play us honestly and try to bring pressure and we can block it up that our guys downfield can beat you, but that can't be your only way of defeating pressure. It can't be tunnel screens and trying to hit you deep. It's got to be a little bit more evolved. So if you're asking me like, could they do like, I think if you have an inkling, Samuel, I think this is where people get wrong. If you have an inkling from your film study about when they bring pressure, that's when you do the tight end screens. That's when you do the halfback screen stuff, right? So the things to mitigate the pressure, right? But that comes in before the game. Now, when you're making those adjustments in game, that's the sight adjustment stuff. We'll see. G-Fan, what's good, buddy? What's up, Gay City? Sorry if you answered this question already. Just want to know who was your favorite draft pick for the Eagles and why? Quinion Mitchell was my favorite pick just because I think that guy's going to be really, really good. I don't know if he's going to be defensive rookie of the year. I've heard some projections out there. He's going to be good. That dude is super instinctive. He's super good with the, playing the ball. I really, really like the Trot Jr. pick in the 5th round. I think Trot Jr. is a guy that's going to really fit what we do here in Philadelphia. I think he's a guy that is severely underrated because people look at his size and they don't think that young man can stack. It can actually move people. He can disrupt blocking scheme. Yeah, that dude's film's pretty good. And I saw a weird one. It's where they said the young man can't cover. I agree there's some limitations in man coverage, but that young man is pretty instinctful in zone. I mean, he had some pretty decent film there. We'll see. I mean, I those two guys in particular, I like Cooper DeJean's pick a lot. Jalyx Hunt has all the ability in the world, but I mean, that's a developmental thing. Like, I got to see it develop. You know what I mean? I like the Keegan kid from Michigan. I don't know, like, if they plan on playing him on the right side. He's primarily played the left side. Had to see how that kind of works out. But, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a backup even to Landon Dickerson. The McMahon pick is interesting. Dylan McMahon is an NC State guy. I know a lot of you guys are waiting on me to break that one down. Really athletically gifted guy. This is a young man. I don't want to get too far into this, guys, because I want to make a video about it. But this was a guy that opened up some doors for NC State into the state of Georgia. We've always drafted or recruited, Georgia, but he got us into essentially the Savannah area, that eastern corridor area outside of Atlanta, the coastal area of Georgia. And that was the first time we had made inroads there from my knowledge, was with Dylan McMahon. So, I mean, I do have some thoughts there about him. He's played some right guard. I think it is interesting the amount of center guards they have on the team. Even the young man that they picked up from Atlanta that's played before, injury concern himself, but he's a center guard type. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely something about those type of players they like. But, yeah, I mean, even Leonard Dixon, you can make Leonard Dixon a little bit more of a natural guard, but center guard type too. He played center as well. I would love Buddy Ball. Yeah. What's up, Cameron? How you doing, buddy? With Fangio in charge, will Sweat be playing with his hand in the dirt or standing up on the edge? Jen, that's a great question. To be honest with you, I don't 100% know. I think you're going to see, no matter what, you're going to see both to an extent. I would assume that he's still going to play that role like they played Bradley Chubb in Denver and then in Miami. So I still think you're going to see him more as an overhang than hand in the dirt. But, I mean, he's big enough to play a 5 technique. He's skilled enough to play 5 techniques. I don't think it'll be like he never does it. Been meaning to tell you, man, how long you been on here, my boy. Yeah. What's up? How you doing, Cameron? Yeah, I'm about to wrap up, man, but I just wanted to try to read everybody's questions if I could. Could you see Steen starting? I think that's what the goal is, Michael. I don't know if he'll hold the position down, but that's the goal, I think. Our secondary is solid. What's up, Hassan? Yeah, I agree, man. I think we do have a definitely a solid secondary right now. How much faith do you have in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. fitting in Fangio's scheme? He kind of has a similar playing style to Dean with a bigger frame, though. I think he's a little bit better at taking on blocks, but he's instinctual like Dean. Dean's instinct, really instinct based. I think he moves well. I think he's very underrated as someone who can move around a little bit. It's going to be interesting. I think he's a fit, personally, Cameron, but I mean, we'll have to see it on the field. Yo, Gate, can't wait until ACC football. But what's your take on the Eagles taking Aeneas Smith over a guy, Bub Means and Brendan Rice? Let's chop it up. Yeah, Sean, you have to come on one time, man. We'll talk a little bit. Yeah, I'm a little shocked there, right? I mean, Aeneas Smith, or I'm sorry, wasn't Aeneas Williams, isn't it? Maybe I'm saying it wrong, Sean. But yeah, I mean, he was natural slot, good yak guy. I'm not shocked they took him. But Brendan Rice had that intriguing size, 6'2", 215-ish. He was intriguing in terms of like having, like more of the Johnny, the Johnny Wilson's a much bigger player, but kind of that Johnny Wilson role. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting what they wanted. Cameron came behind you with the Virginia UVA player, Malik Washington. Yeah, I mean, they definitely wanted, Malik Washington had those, he had a couple of really nice snags over the middle of the field for Virginia. They definitely wanted, I think, a guy that could get them some yak underneath. What happened to your hair, son? Dad, you fought with a weed whacker. Be cool. Thanks for school. You're very sharp with football. Hey, I appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, no, there's a story there, sir. But yeah, I had to buzz it. What do I think about the job? I covered it earlier, Michael. I kind of talked about why I thought it happened. It's in the beginning of the video. Leave a like. I appreciate it, man. What's your projections on Nolan Smith this year as a piece of the Eagles defense? What do you say about his sack number projection in this season? I don't know about his sack, Cameron, but that 5.5% win rate has got to get better. This guy is very twitchy. This is a dude who should be able to win. He should be able to win at this level. However, he's got to show it, man. We need double-digit win rate. He needs to get us quality pressures. I would love to see at least 5-6 sacks in the mix as a rotational guy with some ideas that there's room to grow going forward. But I got to see that win rate creep into the double digits. We need to see a 10% or higher win rate from him. Do you think this defense could be as productive as the 22 defense? I think we can have the same results of success as 22. I don't know if the defense will be quite as dominant early on, but as some of the younger pieces get acclimated, we could start to see the defense growing to something like that. Gates, great point on the rotation. I forgot about that. Yeah. You watch our 6'7" O-lineman is going to be a stud. I feel Hurts was injured. That's why he didn't do good. Speaking of the offense, they finally going to have built-in hot routes. Yeah, exactly, Drew. That's what I'm getting to when I say replace defender with football. It's pressure 101 how you beat it. They didn't have many answers for Hurts against the blitz for his entire time as a starter. Here goes Sean. Sean's an FSU guy, by the way. I think my guy, Johnny Wilson, will be solid. Big physical dude. Sean, he was a nightmare for NC State last year. He needs to work on concentration. Well, not NC State, but the ACC. But his body placement allows him to be a hard one-on-one matchup. Great pick. Go Noles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Yeah, Sean, I'm a little mad that they don't have NC State and Florida State on the agenda. I mean, that's one of the key rival battles. I mean, we've always been a little bit of a thorn in FSU's side. I don't like the fact that game has kind of been one of the things that got lost by the additions of Cal and Stanford and SMU. I hate that that's the game that got taken off of NC State's kind of schedule. I don't like that. I would much rather have Florida State on there. But, great coverage linebackers that are consistent are rare nowadays, though, especially on weak side linebackers. Good point, Cameron. You think Ajomo will have a bigger role this year? Possibly. I don't think he's going to be like some kind of main cog per se, Michael, but I do think that he's going to see an uptick in playing time just by the numbers of it, right? The fact that we're going to have to play him. unless Tui Pelotu is brought back onto the roster. Like, I don't know where Tui Pelotu is going to be in terms of the injury he had last year. So that's my only hesitation with projecting Pelotu onto the roster. And then it's kind of one of the main cogs of the backups. But yeah. How many rookies do you think start week 1? Quinyon Mitchell, I think, is a very good possibility to start. Depending on what they do with Cooper DeJean, he could be a starter. Trot has an outside chance. I don't think it's 100% he's going to start week 1. I would probably say I'd probably bet against it, but I do think by the end of the season, he's got a shot at working his way in. Maybe 2. I think it's going to be hard for some of these other guys to get involved at right guard. I'm not saying they couldn't impress, but I do think it's kind of stacked there. Ooh. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Busy, that's a great question. I'm going to say probably 2. Could you see us getting at least 40 sacks this year? Yeah, I hope so, Michael, because I think that's a very reasonable expectation you set there. I don't think you're being crazy and saying, like, do you think we get 70? Like, like we did in 22? Like, I think you set the bar fairly achievable. So if they don't get 40, I'd be pretty disappointed. Sorry, I think you hit the nail on the head. Do you think we have enough at the edge? A little worried about the depth there. I mean, Remo, that's a fair evaluation to say that on paper it looks good. It looks like we might have something there, but I mean, Brandon Graham is getting up there in age. A big part of our success is going to be, can Bryce Huff take the next step up? Can he be that guy in the rotation? And then outside of Bryce Huff stepping up, being that dude in rotation, like Nolan Smith, can Nolan Smith be worthy of the first round pick? Can he show that he's like that, right? Can Josh Sweat rebound from last year, right? I really like Jalyx Hunt. I think he's got a possibility to be pretty good in the league. I'm not expecting him to be a big impactful player year 1. I'm just not. So, like, to me, it'd be like the Zach Bonds and the other guys on the roster that can potentially factor into the rotation. Can those guys give you something? Yeah, man, I hate that too. I always looked forward to coming up to Raleigh. Yeah, it was always a great game, man. You guys do a great job up there. Great atmosphere. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. Oh, you're not that far from me, bro. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, Sean. We're not far at all. Gotcha. And for sure, Nolan Smith improving his. Yeah, I think your question is valid. Like, I think you're worried, you're concerned. I think it's valid. There's definitely a video we're gonna do. Like, it's gonna be one of the next live streams. We're gonna talk about that rotation on the outside at edge, and like, I think we're gonna build on what we talked about today and why they may have picked Jalyx Hunt, and then kind of expand upon this concept of, well, how do you define the rotation? Like, do they need to maybe look outward? Some of the stuff we won't get answered until camp, but definitely. All right, guys, we're going on almost an hour and a half. I'm going to jump off of here just because the baby, right before I jumped on here, she was spitting up and stuff. And we just kind of completed her feed not that long ago. So I got to try to get ready and prepared for the next feed, which, yeah, it comes up quicker than I like sometimes, man. It's you feel like you got like all these hours in between the feeds, and man, it flies by, guys. All right, I appreciate y'all so much. We will be back tomorrow. Let me get my guy Drew's comment in real quick before I jump off of here. I know there's concern about the depth at edge, but in my opinion, Nolan Smith may be more suited for off-ball and being moved around as an off-ball backer, Drew. Okay, thanks, Gates. Always good. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I got your comment, Drew. But yeah, I mean, you're not the first person I heard say that. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you guys. Let's go shoot again for tomorrow, guys. All right? Peace. I'm out of here.